The galaxy had already moved on, or at least it thought it had. The SOS Vanguard, humanity's pride in exploration, had vanished 3 standard cycles ago. Reports of distress signals had sputtered and died within minutes, leaving nothing but silence across the void. Most civilizations assumed the crew was dead. Some even celebrated, quietly, that the human species had finally met its match in the hostile, uncharted Deathworld system. But Mara Vey refused to believe it. The communications officer hunched over a console aboard the orbital relay station Artemis Prime, her fingers flying across the keys as she replayed the faint signals captured weeks earlier. There, a flicker, a subtle, almost imperceptible sequence buried in static, a heartbeat of code. She leaned closer, holding her breath. The galaxy had given up on them, but humans never surrendered so easily. "Lieutenant Vey?" The voice of her superior, Commander T. Kor, broke the silence. "You've been running that signal through the filters for the last 8 hours. We've run every conceivable pattern. It's just noise. You need to let it go." Mara's eyes narrowed. "It's not noise. It's them. I can feel it. The Vanguard crew is alive, somewhere out there." T-Kor shook his head. "We don't have the resources to chase ghosts in a system that's, well, dangerous. The Deathworld isn't a place for hopeful thinking. It's a grave." But Mara already had her mind made up. While the galaxy mourned, humans had survived worse odds before. Her grandfather had crossed a toxic wasteland on Mars with nothing but ingenuity and a stubborn streak that could rival any alien species. If the Vanguard crew had even a fraction of that grit, they were still alive. Alarms on her console blinked. The faint heartbeat of the encrypted SOS signal pulsed again, stronger this time. Her stomach tightened. It was a breadcrumb trail, barely detectable across the void, but enough to ignite hope. Mara traced it back to a rogue asteroid belt on the outskirts of the Deathworld system. Somewhere in that chaos, the crew had made landfall, hiding, surviving. Every instinct screamed danger. The Deathworld system was notorious. Storms that could shred a ship in seconds, magnetic anomalies that made navigation near impossible, and life forms designed by evolution to kill anything unfamiliar. But Mara didn't see insurmountable odds, she saw an opportunity. By the time she finished uploading a covert flight plan to the Artemis Prime launch bays, Commander T-Kor was gone. The station's artificial gravity hummed beneath her boots as she activated the Vanguard-class shuttle, her hands steady despite the adrenaline pounding in her veins. Somewhere in the Deathworld system, the crew was alive, and humans never abandoned one of their own. The galaxy had written the Vanguard off. Mara intended to prove it wrong. The shuttle shuddered violently as it pierced the outer layers of the Deathworld's atmosphere. Mara Vey gritted her teeth, clutching the controls. Outside, the planet's sky roiled in sickly green and violet storms, lightning slicing through clouds thick with corrosive gases. Navigation systems screamed warnings, but Mara ignored them. Somewhere beneath that chaos, the SOS Vanguard crew was alive, and she intended to find them. The shuttle skimmed over jagged spires of black rock, forests of thorn-like vegetation writhing as if alive. The Deathworld wasn't just hostile, it was a predator in its own right. Gravity anomalies pulled at the ship's hull, forcing Mara to compensate constantly, while instruments detected immense energy fluctuations from below. Someone, or something, was moving down there. A warning beep drew her attention. The shuttle scanners detected faint signs of human life, biosigns altered in ways no normal human physiology should have survived. Mara's pulse quickened. They weren't just alive, they were thriving. Somehow, in this lethal crucible, humans had adapted. She descended into a narrow canyon. The walls were lined with glistening carnivorous flora, their tendrils twitching with predatory curiosity. Mara recalled old survival protocols: stay silent, stay mobile, and always use the environment to your advantage. Her grandfather's lessons whispered in her mind. The world doesn't owe you survival, you earn it every breath. Then she saw movement.
Figures, hunched, agile, and unnervingly calm, emerged from the forest. It was them, the Vanguard crew. Their eyes were sharper, bodies leaner, reflexes uncanny. They wore patchwork armor scavenged from the Deathworld's own fauna, skin patterned in mimicry to blend with the terrain. One of them, Commander Elias Thorne, raised a hand in cautious greeting. "Lieutenant Vey, we thought... No, we knew the galaxy had written us off. What are you doing here?" "We don't leave anyone behind," Mara said simply, a statement heavier than any weapon. Thorne nodded, respect flickering across his weathered features. "You should have stayed away. This place, it changes you. It's not just survival. You learn to think like the predators." Mara glanced around. The canyon floor rippled with movement, creatures with segmented limbs, teeth like scythes, and eyes that reflected every shadow. The crew had not only survived, they had studied the Deathworlders, learned their patterns, and even anticipated them. Bio-adapted drones hummed softly around them, scouting and baiting, almost as if the planet's dangers had become tools. A sudden roar split the air. Mara instinctively dropped to the ground as a massive shadow blotted out the storm. A Deathworld patrol, towering, armored, with limbs built for destruction, was descending toward the canyon. But instead of panic, the Vanguard crew moved with precise coordination, luring the creature into a trap of natural pitfalls and energy nets scavenged from the terrain. Mara realized with a thrill she could barely contain that humans had turned the Deathworld itself into a weapon. They weren't just surviving, they were mastering it. And in doing so, they had gained something no other species could, a true understanding of the most dangerous life in the galaxy. The Deathworlders had underestimated humans. Big mistake.
The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the Deathworlders were coming. Mara Vey and the SOS Vanguard crew watched the distant stars with grim anticipation, their eyes scanning for the first signs of approach. The creatures that had once been confined to a hostile planet now moved like an unstoppable tide through space. The human crew had learned to survive on the Deathworld, but the galaxy was about to witness the full scope of their ingenuity and the danger they had studied so closely. The first strike came without warning. Mining colonies in the outer rim reported colossal shadows blotting out suns. Ships vanished, leaving only scorched debris. Panic rippled through neighboring systems. Entire species feared humanity's neighbors, yet the humans themselves had no illusions. They had faced this on the Deathworld, and they had learned to fight smarter, not stronger. Commander Thorne gathered the crew in the cavern-turned command center that they had carved from the planet's jagged terrain. "We've trained for this. The Deathworlders operate on instinct, on brute strength, but we've learned their patterns, their weaknesses. Now we make them fight our way." Mara's hands tightened on the controls of their makeshift command console. Using data collected from the planet's predators and the Deathworlders themselves, the crew devised traps that leveraged environmental hazards, corrosive gas vents, seismic rifts, and swarms of genetically modified scavenger drones. Every plan was unconventional, every tactic designed to confuse a foe that relied on raw power. The first encounter was brutal. Mara watched as a Deathworlder squadron breached the outskirts of an orbital colony. Massive, armored limbs tore through structures, and the air hummed with their bioelectric pulses. But the humans had anticipated this. They activated hidden minefields and maneuvered the colony's defense drones into the Deathworlder's path. Explosions rocked the station, but the creature's formations faltered. Prey became unwittingly herded into traps. "Now!" Thorne shouted, and the crew unleashed a second wave. Camouflage shuttles, dropping bio-adapted nets, tethered energy fields, and sonic disruptors calibrated to the creature's neural frequencies. The Deathworlders, intelligent as they were, faltered under these human-engineered tactics. Mara's pulse raced. She could feel the thrill of strategy, the exhilaration of outsmarting a predator that had once seemed unstoppable. Each human move was precise, each counter-strike calculated. The Deathworlders adapted slowly, but humans adapted faster. The battle raged for hours. Colonies burned, debris littered space, and the galaxy watched in disbelief as humans held their ground. Every skirmish highlighted what humanity had learned on the Deathworld. Survival wasn't about brute strength, it was about cunning, adaptation, and using the environment to your advantage. By the time the first Deathworlder fleet retreated, staggering under losses, Mara and the Vanguard crew had proven a simple truth. The galaxy may have underestimated humans, but survival had sharpened them into something other species could not match. As they regrouped, Thorn spoke quietly, almost to himself. "They'll come again, stronger, smarter, but so will we. The galaxy has just begun to see what humans are capable of." Mara looked out at the stars, the adrenaline still humming through her veins. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, humanity was no longer the prey.
The galaxy held its breath. Word of the Deathworlders' advance spread like wildfire, and fear gripped countless star systems. No one truly believed humans could stand against such a force. Yet on a jagged asteroid station near the edge of the Deathworld system, Mara Vey and the SOS Vanguard crew prepared their final gambit. "Every move counts," Commander Thorn said, his voice steady but tense. "They'll expect brute force. They'll never expect strategy. We've learned from their instincts, from the planet itself. Now, we turn the hunter into the hunted." The humans' plan was audacious. They would lure the Deathworlders into a massive asteroid field rigged with traps, gravimetric anomalies, plasma-tethered nets, and camouflaged mines that mimicked natural terrain. Every device was inspired by adaptations the crew had devised while surviving the Deathworld itself. The galaxy watched nervously as humans positioned themselves at precise coordinates, their small fleet dwarfed by the colossal Deathworlder vessels. The first wave struck like a living storm. Deathworlder ships plowed through the asteroid belt, confident in their overwhelming power. Mara's heart pounded as her fingers danced across the controls, triggering gravitic distortions and releasing plasma nets at critical moments. Ships collided with invisible barriers, tearing themselves apart on jagged asteroids. The Deathworlders' superior strength was rendered useless in a battlefield they couldn't fully perceive. From orbit, the humans executed their next phase, psychological manipulation. Using patterns gleaned from their studies of the Deathworlders' instincts, they created decoy signals and false movement cues. The alien forces began turning on each other, mistaking comrades for threats. Mara watched with a mix of awe and fear as the strategy unfolded, chaos harnessed by human ingenuity. Then came the final maneuver. Thorn activated the hidden energy arrays, using the gravitational quirks of a nearby dying star to amplify the effects. The Deathworlder ships were trapped, crushed between their own momentum and human-engineered forces of nature. Mara could hardly believe the sight. Creatures that had once seemed unstoppable were now falling in predictable, almost elegant patterns, victims of human foresight and adaptability. When the dust settled, the human fleet emerged largely unscathed. Mara stepped onto the observation deck, staring at the remnants of the battlefield. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Not a victory of brute force, but of intellect, courage, and resilience. Humans had survived where others would have perished. They had outsmarted a predator species on its own terms. Commander Thorn placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "We've done more than survive. We've shown the galaxy what it means to be human." Word spread quickly. Humans returned to their colonies as heroes,
Not because of weapons, but because of ingenuity, moral courage, and the ability to adapt when everything seemed impossible. Across star systems, species that had doubted humanity's worth now respected them, some even cautiously seeking alliances. Yet Mara knew the fight had changed them. The SOS Vanguard crew would never be the same. Their bodies and minds bore the marks of the Death World, a permanent reminder that survival demanded creativity, tenacity, and unity. Looking out at the stars, Mara smiled grimly. The galaxy had believed the SOS lost, but humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed. And this was only the beginning.